Mother's Promise Part 7. The weeks after Leona met her father were not easy, but something had changed inside her. She was no longer the little girl who cried because of what people said. She was no longer the young woman afraid of her past. Now, she was strong, and that strength showed in everything she did. At work, Leona threw herself into her designs and projects. Her fashion brand kept growing, and soon she was invited to work closely with one of the biggest fashion companies in Lagos. That was where she met him, Nathaniel. He was the company's director, a tall, handsome man with calm eyes and a warm smile that made people feel at ease. He carried himself with confidence, but there was kindness in the way he spoke. The first time they met, he stopped by her workspace, looking over one of her sketches. "This is beautiful," he said, holding up the design sheet. Leona looked up and smiled politely. "Thank you, sir." He chuckled softly. "Please, call me Nathaniel." From that day, he often found reasons to stop by. Sometimes it was to talk about work. Sometimes it was to ask about a design. And sometimes, it felt like he simply wanted to see her. At first, Leona kept things professional. But Nathaniel was different. He listened when she spoke. He respected her opinions. He admired not just her beauty, but her mind and determination. One evening after work, as they stood outside the office building, he looked at her and said, "You know, Leona, I've met many talented people, but I've never met anyone as strong as you." Leona felt her cheeks warm slightly. "You hardly know me," she said with a small smile. Nathaniel's expression softened. "I know enough to see that you carry a story in your eyes." His words stayed with her long after that evening. As the months passed, their bond deepened. What started as work conversations slowly turned into shared lunches, long evening drives, and quiet talks about life. For the first time, Leona felt safe enough to let someone in. One night, sitting by the waterfront under the soft glow of city lights, she finally told him about her past, about Ada, about the struggles, about the pain. Nathaniel listened without interrupting. When she finished, she looked away, almost afraid of what he might think. But instead, he gently took her hand. "Leona," he said softly, "your past does not reduce your worth. It proves your strength." Tears filled her eyes. In that moment, she knew. This was not just love. This was peace. A year later, Nathaniel proposed. It happened on a quiet evening in Ada's living room. Leona had just returned home from work when she found the room decorated with flowers and candles. She turned in surprise. Nathaniel stepped forward, dressed neatly, holding a small velvet box. Her breath caught. "Leona," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You are the strongest, kindest, and most beautiful woman I have ever known." He dropped to one knee. "I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you every day. Will you marry me?" Leona's eyes filled with tears. She looked at her mother, who stood nearby smiling through tears of her own. Then back at Nathaniel. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder. "Yes, I will." Nathaniel slipped the ring onto her finger as Ada clapped her hands with joy. For the first time in a long while, the house was filled with nothing but laughter and happiness. The wedding day arrived in beauty and light. The hall was decorated in white and gold, filled with flowers and soft music. Friends, family, and colleagues filled the seats. Ada sat in the front row, dressed elegantly, her eyes shining with pride. As Leona walked down the aisle in her beautiful white gown, Nathaniel could not take his eyes off her. She looked radiant, strong, happy, everything Ada had prayed for. When the vows were exchanged and the ceremony was complete, Leona took the microphone before the reception began. The room fell silent. She turned toward her mother. "Mama," she began, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. Ada looked up, surprised. Leona smiled through tears. "Today, before everyone here, I want to thank the woman who made this moment possible." The room grew still. "My mother chose me every single day of her life." Ada's eyes filled with tears. "She chose me when life was hard. She chose me when the world judged her. She chose me when she had every reason to give up." Leona's voice cracked. "Mama, thank you for choosing me every day." By now, tears were flowing down Ada's face. Leona stepped down from the stage, walked to her mother, and knelt in front of her. "I am standing here today because of your love, your sacrifices, and your strength." Ada pulled her into a tight embrace. "And I will always choose you," Ada whispered. The hall erupted into applause. Some guests wiped tears from their eyes. Even Nathaniel stood quietly, deeply moved by the moment. That night, as the celebration continued, Ada looked at her daughter dancing happily with her husband. And in that moment, she knew every pain, every sacrifice, every sleepless night, it had all been worth it, because the promise she made years ago on a lonely Lagos Street had finally come true. Her daughter had found love. Her daughter had found peace. And their story had become one of strength, hope, and victory. The mother's promise had been fulfilled. The end.